As your practice grows, it's so important to be able to stay organized and keep on top of things, especially when it comes to documentation, filing insurance claims, keeping appointments straight, and getting reminders to people. Well, there's a great solution for all of that, and that is TherapyNotes. TherapyNotes is the leading electronic health record system for mental health providers. It's who I use in my practice. And so go check them out today, therapynotes.com. And if you use the coupon code Gordon, just GORDON, you can get 2 months free. So check them out today, therapynotes.com. This is the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer, helping you to navigate your private practice journey. This is session number 151 of the Practice of Therapy podcast. Hello, folks. I'm Gordon Brewer. Glad you're here. Glad you're joining me in this journey. Glad you're listening to the podcast. And as I always say, if this is your first time listening to the podcast, welcome. Hope you'll take time to subscribe to the podcast wherever you might be listening to it. So we're almost done with October. That's hard to believe. It just this past year has just been a whirlwind, to say the least, in a lot of different ways. But anyway, I hope you're doing well. Hope you're staying healthy and safe despite the spike in COVID cases across the country, and just hope you're weathering this election season. I finally got out, didn't finally get out, but got to vote this past week. Did some early voting, and and so got that out of the way. So, so I've got, I'm looking forward to next week as this particular episode is coming out. I'm going to take the week off. I'm going to take some vacation time, and I've got a backpacking trip planned with my brother. We're going to do another section of the Appalachian Trail, and so I'm real excited about that, and been getting in shape with that and playing with all my backpacking equipment and trying to get my the weight of my pack down. But anyway, looking forward to that, and hopefully the weather's going to cooperate with us, and we're going to have a minimal amount of rain. But we're going to try to do about 25 miles, and so. So that'll be fun over 3 nights. So it's one of the things I love to do. So looking forward to that. I'm also looking forward to you hearing from our guest today, Danielle Branch, and Danielle's one of those great people again that I met online, and she is just really got a great story, just talking about her private practice journey. And in particular, it's, I think, a typical one in that she was working for an agency and made the transition into her own practice. And I think that is, true for a lot of us in private practice. So looking forward to you hearing from Danielle and just her thoughts on perfectionism. And that's one of the things that I know a lot of us kind of high achieving people can get ourselves into, is really kind of a perfectionism mindset. One of the things I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned this a few times before, is that there are several of you that have enrolled in the G Suite for Therapists course, and it's still available. You can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite course. But anyway, G Suite is changing their branding, or Google is changing the branding of G Suite. It's no longer called G Suite. It's called Google Workplace. But anyway, I'm in the process of making some updates. And for those of you that have already enrolled in the course, you will get the updates automatically. And anybody that enrolls in the course, as I update things over the years, it's an evergreen course, and so it's one that I hope to add to and give updates. So if you enroll in the course, you've got lifetime access to it. But anyway, it's changing to Google Workspace, and they're, and I'm sure it will change again. That's just how the nature of the beast. But anyway, I've also got a survey that I'm doing, and you can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite survey. I believe that's the correct URL, but we'll have a link here in the show summary, show notes for you to get to that. But I would like for you to, if you don't mind, take a few minutes and go into that survey and just answer that for me so I get an idea about how people are using the tools of Google Workspace now, and what you want to learn more about. And that'll help me in just updating the course and getting things ready for that. So anyway, go be sure and check that out. And if you haven't enrolled in the course already, again, you can get to that at practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite course. And you'll, even though the updates aren't up there yet, you'll be able to get them now. And probably once I get the updates there, we're going to go up on the price of it. So now's a good time to purchase the course if you're interested in it. So before we get to Danielle, I'd like to invite you to go over and check out the folks at Green Oak Accounting. They are absolutely the financial experts when it comes to private practice. Julie and her team are second to none, and they will spend time with you and learning about your practice. And Green Oak Accounting is also totally devoted to our profession. That's all they work with, are counselors and therapists in private practice. And so be sure and check them out today, Green Oak Accounting, and you can get to them at greenoakaccounting.com. And when you talk to them, be sure and let them know you heard about them here on the podcast. They will do a free consultation with you and be really helpful to you in helping you understand the whole financial side of your practice. So without further ado, here's my friend Danielle Branch. Well, hello, everyone, and welcome again to the Practice of Therapy podcast. And I'm so happy for you to meet my new friend, Danielle Branch. And Danielle is another one of those great people I met online. And Danielle is up in the Baltimore area. So I'm looking forward to you getting to hear her story. So welcome, Danielle.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And so as I start with everyone, why don't you tell folks about your private practice journey and just how you've landed where you've landed?
Sure. So I started off after grad school, not really being able to find a therapy job. So I started off really just being a community educator at House of Ruth, Maryland, where we really focused on trauma therapy and just educating the community about domestic violence and the impacts of domestic violence on families, on individuals, so on and so forth. So I really didn't even start my journey with therapy, but it really was a very good foundation because it taught me a lot about relationship dynamics, particularly unhealthy relationship dynamics. But of course, inevitably, when you're focusing on unhealthy relationship dynamics, you're doing a lot of studying and talking about and processing and reflecting of healthy relationship patterns, right? So, and teaching those skills. So that really sort of started the foundation of me really wanting to go into couples therapy. So after my time there is when I started my private practice part-time. Because I really wanted to get into doing therapy. And so, and agency work is sometimes a little bit less accommodating than I needed it to be. And so it was really the path for me was to be able to be my own boss. So I started the private practice part-time. It was really a leap of faith to eventually go full-time. There was a huge part of me that was scared and was thinking about all the what ifs, like what if I fail? What if I don't have enough clients? What if I'm not good enough? So all of those sorts of things sort of were in the back of my mind, but I decided to do it anyway. I think a lot of times people believe that because I've done what I've done, that somehow I've not been scared to do it.
Right.
But that is absolutely not the case. So it's just about doing it anyway. So here I am now, 5 years later, with a full-time practice and 3 clinicians working with me.
Wow. That's incredible. And I think your story, just like I hear from so many other people, is that you have a passion for helping and working, doing the clinical work and doing all that sort of thing, and just working within an agency can get hard at times.
Yeah.
And it just ends up being a much longer job, I guess you could say, in that just the time you have to put in. So,
Absolutely.
So one of the things I know we talked about, and you kind of alluded to this in your story there, is just about perfectionism and how that can get in our way. And so what have you kind of learned about that along the way for yourself?
Absolutely. So I call myself a recovering perfectionist on a regular basis. I say that to my clients. My friends know that's what I call myself because, I grew up in a household with a single mom who wanted the best for me, right? And so her expectations were extremely high, and I found myself always striving to meet them. And so, I found myself really chasing the high of what it felt like to get like that praise, the high of what it was like to be successful or get straight A's or all these sorts of things. And so, of course, that came into my business, right? So starting my private practice where, there was this part of me that was just really like deeply afraid to fail, whatever that means or whatever that looks like. And so, every time a client would come in and say something about the decor, or like whenever somebody would have a suggestion about something that could be different, there was this level of like personalization that would happen because I wanted it to be perfect. Right. I wanted my practice to already be perfect, which of course is like completely unrealistic, and completely impossible. And so it's been a real struggle. And of course I've had to, embark on my own therapy journey, go to supervision about this to really get to a space where I'm able to accept the imperfections that inevitably come from being a human and being a private practice owner.
Right. Yeah, and I think it's what I'm reminded of is that it's through the imperfections that we learn the most, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just really how we grow and learn is by failing at things. I mean, that's, So,
absolutely.
Yeah. I don't think anybody learned to walk without falling down. So,
absolutely.
Right. So, what were some of the things that were the biggest learning curve for you when you first started in your practice? What were some of the things that, oh wow, I had to learn this?
Yeah. So, I think the first moment of that I had was because I'm a couples therapist, and honestly, just to give you some background, the reason I became a couples therapist was because I saw the numbers, the divorce rate numbers, right? And I was like, I want to be a part of like fixing this thing. And of course, that's like my naivety at 20 something years old, not recognizing I can't fix a thing. And so I remember the first couple I had that decided to split, right? The first couple I had that decided, you know what, like, this is not working. We're not right for each other. And I was devastated, right? I was like thinking of myself as like a failure and like, how can I call myself a couples therapist? I'm not like helping people. So there was like this slew of just like self-doubt and just like a mix of all kinds of crappy emotions, shame, and all of that sort of thing. And I really had to process that deeply and take that to supervision and take that to therapy before I was really able to get to a space of acceptance that it is not my job to fix relationships. Right. And so that was probably the first pivotal moment that I had as a private practice owner, as a couples therapist, for sure.
Right. Yeah. And that's, that echoes, I think, and I appreciate you being vulnerable like that, because I think that echoes what I hear from a lot of my clients as well, is that because that perfectionist takes over, that perfectionist part of us takes over, it also creates this internal critic where we're just very critical of ourselves, and we compare ourselves to others. We are harder on ourselves than probably anybody else is. And the best thing we can do with that internal critic is just to dismiss it and move forward. So, yeah.
And to name it.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Well, what were some of the exciting things that you learned when you first went into practice?
Some of the exciting things. I think the flexibility of my schedule has been really exciting. I know that might not be,
I hear you.
not like client related, but that to me was one of the major differences between working for an agency and moving to private practice, was being able to set my own schedule, being able to recognize like what I can manage in terms of like how many clients feels good for me to see per week versus what the expectations were in agency.
Right.
And so being able to, and that came with some shame too, because there was a part of me that was like, I should be able to see those should statements, right? I should be able to see such and such amount of clients per week. But it was just really cool to be able to accept, you know what? I'm a person who caps out at such and such amount of clients per week, and that feels good for me.
Right. Yeah. And that's something that I've learned along the way as well, is just the importance of finding in fact, I'm going to be doing a webinar here soon, just around this topic of creating a practice that fits your lifestyle. And I think there are therapists. In fact, I've got one that works for me that loves that high caseload and just likes being able to see a lot of people. For me, no, I don't enjoy that kind of pressure. And like you, I worked for an agency before, and I've been there and done that. And so know that sort of thing. So, yeah. So at some point you started a group practice. So tell us about that and how that came to fruition and what you've learned around that.
Sure. I feel like in a lot of ways, that was sort of a blessing, because I don't know if that was my vision. I think, again, with like that self-doubt and stuff like that, there was a huge part of me that would have maybe just stayed in a private practice forever, right? It would have just been me, and nobody else is relying on me. I don't have to be responsible for anybody else. But it felt really lonely.
Right.
It felt really isolating. And I'm the type of person that really thrives off of community. I really thrive off of connection and that sort of thing. And so really my first sort of independent contractor came from an agency that I used to work in. And so she knew that I had a private practice that I had started part-time, and she knew that my plan was to go full-time. And she came to me And she's like, I know how you work. I see, the quality, and I really would like to, in some way or another, be a part of what you're doing. And I just couldn't believe it. Like,
wow.
I think I was sort of taken aback because I didn't know that people, I guess, were recognizing that in me.
Right.
And I surely didn't think that somebody would see it enough to want to be a part of it. And so with that passion, we had a few conversations, and I really reflected on it and journaled on it and prayed about it. And I decided to bring her on as an independent contractor. And since then, it sort of has happened like that. And I think we talked about this being about the Black community. And I think as an African-American woman, as an African-American business owner, an African-American person who is in charge of a private practice and who started a private practice, I think it is a pull maybe for other African-American women to say, you know what, I want to be inspired by that, right? Like, I want to feel like I could be a part of that. I want to feel like I could do that myself. All right. And so there have been a couple of therapists that I've had under me, and most of them that come my way, like I said, are African-American women who have come in and then gone out to start their own private practices. And so I just feel honored to be able to even be a part of something like that for somebody's journey.
Right. Yeah. So your practice, all of the people in your practice, the clinicians are also African American women, correct? Yeah. And so how did that come? Was it, if I understand what you're saying, that so far you've had people just come to you, or has there been a point at which you said, oh, I need to add another clinician, or how has that worked for you?
So just recently, I've started thinking about expanding and thinking about what it would look like for me to reach out and publicize it. But up until this point, it really has just been just those connections and just having conversations with other African American women in the community and in our field, and having them feel excited about the work,
right.
and feel really passionate about some of the things that we're doing at Branches of Life, and wanting to be a part of that. And so, so far, that's how it's come to be. I just feel really blessed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, it's I'm wondering what you're seeing in your practice, particularly given the atmosphere we're in now, which is just an atmosphere of huge change. I think just for everyone. What sort of things are coming up for you all clinically, just around the Black Lives Matter movement and just racism and that sort of thing? What is it? Because I feel like, in talking with some of my other Black friends, it's just really heavy stuff.
For sure.
And just really having to process it, not only with clients, but also as a therapist. And what you're learning so far about all of that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think the hard part about it is that it doesn't feel new.
Okay.
It doesn't feel different. It just feels like the world thinks it's different or new.
Gotcha.
And so it's almost like this quote unquote, I put my fingers in quotation marks here, this secret that somehow only Black people or like people of color, and maybe even in some white folks, have known, and then now all of America can see it and can't hide from it, right?
Yeah. right.
Yeah. And so I think when it first started happening, in the beginning of the summer, it was extremely overwhelming for a lot of for me and a lot of my clinicians, because it was just an overflow of information, an overflow of people talking about it, and having people advocate for Black people, and advocate for different rights and so on and so forth. And in a lot of ways, we had to do a lot of self-care.
Mm-hmm.
In our staff meetings, we had to do different things like vision boards. And we've had a couple of times where our staff meeting was just us venting,
Mm-hmm.
and chatting about the different impacts that everything is having on us. And I think I've really encouraged all of them to be in therapy themselves, because
Mm-hmm.
as a Black clinician who sees a lot of African American clients, it can be extremely heavy,
Mm-hmm.
because they're pouring, and some people are feeling hopeless, and some people are some people are feeling hopeful about the changes, and those sorts of things. So it's a bit of a mixture.
Yeah.
I hope I'm answering your
Yeah.
question.
Well, you are. I think you're. Yeah, and you are. I think you echo what I'm, like I said earlier, hearing from a lot of my Black friends, just about just the heaviness of it all, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
kind of like. Yeah, finally, people are talking about something that's been going on for years, and
Right.
I like how you put it. Just the fact that, yeah, what people are, are acting like it was some big secret. Particularly,
Mm-hmm.
I'll just say it. Particularly white people, they act like,
Mm-hmm.
this is a new thing, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I appreciate your vulnerability on that, and just being able to share that. What would you say? Um, just it sounds like with your group, you guys are really kind of your group practice. You guys are really just kind of a real support to each other
Mm-hmm.
around, just to be able to talk about those things
Mm-hmm.
and that sort of thing. And also the fact that you've got a predominantly African American niche that you're working with. I'm sorry, I lost my question there, but I was just
Okay.
thinking about, the importance of support, and just being
Mm-hmm.
able to have supports to draw on, which
For
again,
sure.
as we were talking about earlier, just kind of some of the themes of the podcast so far. And I think being able to draw on those supports is so important.
Yeah.
And it's good that you guys have got that network there within your group.
Yeah.
So, well, one question that comes to mind, and this, what do you feel, what are you feeling hopeful about at this point? Just in
Mm.
terms of either this specific issue of racism, or just in your practice in general.
Mm-hmm. So, I guess when it comes to race and racism, and the changes that are happening, I think I try my best to remain as hopeful as I can, because when you lose hope, there's all kinds of room for anger and resentment, and things that are really difficult to heal from and live with.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, there are things that I remain angry about and resentful about, but
Mm-hmm.
I do try my best to remain hopeful. And I think what I have to wind up doing for myself, and I talk a lot to my clinicians and also my clients about this, is being able to know what your boundaries are. Similarly to what we were talking about with how many clients you can have per week,
Mm-hmm.
being able to say, listen, I can't really take more than such and such amount of time scrolling on Facebook looking at this.
Right.
And also recognizing that the education is not for me. I already know this stuff. So me
Mm-hmm.
going through it is just triggering. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So being able to put a cap on it, have a boundary with it, and show up in ways that feel good for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And show up in ways that feel meaningful for me, and participating in the movement in ways that feel helpful and healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think me finding that balance gives me hope,
Mm-hmm.
and me trying to help other people find that balance. right?
Right.
How can you pour, but also take care of yourself?
Right.
And I think more and more people are learning, or at least from my perspective and in my sort of circle or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
people are learning how to have more of that balance. I've also been feeling really hopeful because, I mean, I don't just have African American clients, right? I have clients from all different backgrounds, all different ethnicities, and so like even some of my white clients will come to me and we'll talk about it, and sometimes that's draining, right? Sometimes that's hard,
Mm-hmm.
but it gives me hope, right? That they're opening up, right? And they're wanting to do something meaningful, and they're
Mm-hmm.
wanting to learn, and it feels like a very genuine thing, right? So not just my white clients, but white friends and things like that, where there's a genuine eye opening that's
Mm-hmm.
happening,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that gives me hope,
Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
try to hold on to that,
Right.
because
Right.
we change laws and things like that, which is like amazing, and that needs to happen. And also, or like we throw money at stuff, which is also great and needs to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But when we don't have a genuine empathy for somebody's experience, it'll die, right?
Right.
We'll give a certain amount of money and they'll be like, shh, all right. But this empathy that I'm seeing these days, that right there is giving me hope.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Um,
Right.
and for my private practice, I think I'm hopeful. Like the fact that you reached out to me, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Like,
Yeah.
because I listened to the podcast. So I think that the fact that our name is like getting out there and people are recognizing what we're doing, and the fact that we're expanding, and it all gives me hope. We've been trying to do different what do you call them, workshops and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. It hasn't been working as well as I would like or hope.
Yeah.
That's probably my perfectionism coming out.
Uh-huh. Right. Right.
But
Uh-huh.
all in all, I think I'm really hopeful about where we're going in the direction that we're moving in,
Right.
and the recognition that we're getting.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing all that, because I think that's I think one of my things is I think we have to all take kind of a positive perspective, and I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes with the heaviness of everything, not only with racism, but just with COVID and all of that, it's just I think giving us something to be hopeful about and to be grateful for, and all of those kinds of things are just so important to remember
Mm-hmm.
in moving forward. So yeah, so I know Danielle, we could probably spend just hours talking about these kinds of things, and I want to be respectful of your time. What would you, just imparting, what would you? Yeah, and you spoke about boundaries as well, and
Mm-hmm.
one thing I would like to add to what you said was just the importance of being genuine, and
Mm-hmm.
just the fact that I think if we're genuine not only with others but also to ourselves,
Yeah.
we can find some appropriate boundaries, with just
Mm-hmm.
being able
Absolutely.
to set what we need. So, but
Mm-hmm.
just to, I guess, maybe kind of in wrapping things up, what would you want to just kind of leave with anybody that might be listening? I think maybe
Mm-hmm.
something that you feel like is important for people to know about
Mm-hmm.
private practice and the work that you're doing.
Mm-hmm. There was this quote that I'm pretty sure I saw it on Instagram. I do not remember who said it. But
Mm-hmm.
it said that perfection is the enemy of greatness. Perfection is the enemy of greatness, and that stuck with me so deeply to my core because, if I want to leave any private practice owners with anything, is just to recognize and accept that you will never get it all right.
Right.
You will never get
Yes.
there, right? And again, I'm doing those
Uh-huh.
quotation marks. You will never get to a there.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
there's always more to do or more to give or more to, you know what I mean?
Right.
And so just being accepting of that and celebrating what you are doing.
Yeah.
And being able to take feedback so that, you know, that you could do better. And that doesn't mean that you're not already doing good enough.
Right.
Right?
Right.
Just because you could always do better doesn't mean you're not doing good enough.
Right. Right.
So yeah, definitely. Because those are the things that have really shifted my perspective and how I'm showing up in my private practice and with my clinicians. But in terms of what I'm doing, I just finished a book. I did a thing.
Oh, wow.
I'm really excited about it. It's called "And I Still Love You." And so it's basically a book about exactly what we're talking about. Not exactly what we're talking about, in some ways what we're talking about, but it's about loving imperfect people, which is everybody.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
And so,
that's great. Yeah. We'll be sure. And I'll get from you the link so that folks can find out how to get that and check that out. So, but, you know, I guess one quick thing I would add to what you're saying there is, this is probably a quote I heard somewhere as well. It's just the joy is in the journey, not the destination.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And so being able to accept the fact that it is a journey and not necessarily you're never going to really arrive. It's just always going to be constant flux of change. So, so Danielle, so tell folks how they can get in touch with you and your website and all that sort of thing.
Sure. So my private practice is called Branches of Life Therapy. You can find our website at www.branchesoflifetherapy.com. You can find us on Facebook at Branches of Life. And you can find us on Instagram at branches.of.life.
Okay. Okay. Cool.
Yep. So that's me.
Yeah. And again, we'll have links in the show notes and the show summary here for folks to get to that quickly. And with the book coming out, is there any place they can find that?
So we're still in the works of putting it out, but the release is set for November.
Okay. Awesome.
And the pre-order should be out within the next couple of weeks. So I'll send that over to you as soon as we get that link going.
Sounds great. And we'll add that to the show summary so that people can maybe come back and find it later. And it might be that this episode comes out. I'm not sure on my schedule, but it might be that this episode will come out to coincide with that. So, well, Danielle, again, thank you for being on the podcast. And I'm so glad we've gotten to know each other and gotten to have this conversation.
Me too. This was great. Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm so grateful to Danielle for being with me on the podcast and her willingness to just be vulnerable and talk about the things that are those things that are pretty heavy for people, particularly people that are of brown skin, black skin, people of color. Although, a little side note here, I'm still struggling with that term, people of color, because we all have a color to some degree. So anyway, I hope I don't get off on too much of a tangent, but I think the thing that just really strikes me up with Danielle is just her positivity and the fact that she is really helping people overcome perfectionism and really looking at how that can keep us back from really a sense of greatness or a sense of accomplishing things in the world. And I appreciate very much her vulnerability around just talking about racism and what her experience has been as a Black woman and a Black therapist. And I think we need to keep that conversation going. And I'm going to do my best to keep giving voice to that here on this platform and this podcast. But anyway, again, thanks to Danielle for joining me. Be sure and check out her things and her website, and you'll find links here in the show notes and the show summary to her to her things and her Instagram and all of that. So be sure to also check out our sponsors for today's podcast, TherapyNotes, TherapyNotes.com. And they are really the number one electronic health record system for therapists. They are who I use in my practice and couldn't do without them. They've got a patient portal that's second to none, and their support is superior. If you ever run into problems, they are just very helpful and respond very quickly. So, and also be sure and check out Green Oak Accounting, greenoakaccounting.com. Julie Harris and her team over there are the experts in all things financial within private practice, particularly for those of us in the mental health fields. That's their specialty, and that's what they focus on. So be sure and check them out today, greenoakaccounting.com. And also, just as be sure and help me out on that survey at practiceoftherapy.com/G Suite survey. And that'll give me more information to know what we can do to update the course as things continually change with Google and the tools that they provide, which is now known as Google Workspace. The term G Suite is going away. So having to make that shift, and you just gotta embrace it. That's all there is to it when change happens. So, well, take care, folks. I hope you have a good rest of your week or weekend whenever you might be listening to this. And hopefully I will come back in one piece from my backpacking trip. But anyway, we'll talk to you again next week. Take care, folks. Been listening to the Practice of Therapy podcast with Gordon Brewer. Please visit us at practiceoftherapy.com for more information, resources, and tools to help you in starting, building, and growing your private practice. And if you haven't done so already, please sign up to receive the free private practice startup guide at practiceoftherapy.com. The information in this podcast is intended to be accurate and authoritative concerning the subject matter covered. It is given with the understanding that neither the hosts, guests, or producers are rendering legal, accounting, or clinical advice. If you need a professional, you should find the right person for that.